Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick, here today to start the off-season in a good way and with a good friend of the show, Brad McGowan. How are you doing, Brad?
I'm doing great, Ken, other than I miss watching the Ravens.
Me too. Wouldn't it be great to have them playing this Sunday? Anyway, we're here to talk a little bit about the off-season, and obviously there is a reactive nature to things when the Ravens exit. The suddenness of it brings out a lot of the people who think it was for the reasons that they thought all along. It brings out a lot of other people who are just upset about something and need to vent. It does not elicit a lot of talk, I think, from people who are most level, I will say, about how things proceed in a very Ravens way, meaning, the 80-20 rule, always having a fairly flat cap and whatnot. Brad, I know you have some interesting thoughts on this, but just in general, do you have that same feeling about the end of the season and what kind of things come out?
Oh man, I'm a fan like everyone else. I get frustrated like everyone else. I go through my own stages of grief like everyone else. Try to understand. I think for me, my personality, the thing I love so much about football is the complexity and the nuance. And so you can take a lot of different positions and find reasons to back them up based on this data point or that data point. And I love having those conversations. So I try to be level-headed, but sometimes my passions do get the best of me.
All right. Sometimes the frustration for me is any kind of analysis by anecdote, but I know what you're doing here. You're bringing up some anecdotes from this game, and we want to talk about this. These are from all three clips from the Tennessee game we're going to talk about.
Correct.
We're going to encourage folks to open up Game Pass, watch along with us on the plays. We didn't do video with this show. There was a question. We had a technical hang up on this. We might do it again with video at a later time. But this is a good show. And Brad's brought up some good points here that I think are worth considering. And they are, at a minimum, they are counterexamples to some of the other things that you'll hear about everything needs to change in order for the Ravens offense ever to be successful.
Correct. I think bottom line up front for the listeners, we'll hear a lot in this offseason, whether it's just from Ravens fans or national pundits, that A, the passing concepts are tired and they need to evolve, or B, the Ravens need a true number one receiver. And those things may be true, but it may also be the case that Lamar just needs to get a little better. The wide receivers just need a little more time to gel. There are a lot of factors that go in here. And so what I hope to do is point out a couple examples from the Tennessee game where the Ravens had a critical passing down. There were receivers open and they were unsuccessful. So we'll show what happens.
All right. Okay. There's a tremendous topic here, and we're going to tuck you through. And again, go to Game Pass if you would. And the first thing I'm going to direct you to is quarter one, 12:04, critical 3rd and 5 early in the game for the Ravens. And they were at their own 23-yard line. So we're going to give the Titans pretty good field position if they didn't get a first down on this play. So see if you can get to that in Game Pass and take us through this play a little bit, Brad, in terms of what you saw on it.
Sure. So first of all, it's 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and a back to Lamar's right. Before the snap, Hollywood motions left to right. And so you'll have Andrews to Lamar's right in the slot and Hollywood split out further right. And if you look at the Titans defense, you have the defenders manning up on the left side of the formation against the wide receivers, Boykin and Snead, in press coverage. And when Hollywood goes in motion, Adoree Jackson runs with him, and he's giving him about 10 yards of coverage. So it's a man look the Titans are giving. Loose coverage on Hollywood. Everyone else is tied up.
Right. So a couple of things other I noticed on this today. 6 set pieces still on this play. So you got 2 linebackers in the game, 4 defensive linemen. And as you mentioned, from left to right on the 4 split receivers, it's press man, press, and off coverage from Adoree Jackson on Brown.
Correct. So if you run the tape, the ball snaps and play action, Lamar fakes to the back, cutting across from right to left, and drops back and immediately looks to Andrews, throws it, pass incomplete, well covered, well defended. conversion unsuccessful, and the Ravens have a 4th and 5 and end up punting. Now, if you look just to Andrew's right, Hollywood runs a similar in-breaking route, a little bit deeper, well past the sticks, and there's no one within 5 yards of him. He's wide open. Now, obviously, we do not know the read progressions and the rules that Lamar is instructed to read the defense with. So we don't know if he makes the right decision or not. But just from the game film and the coach's film, it's clear there's a wide open receiver. Easy throw. He makes that throw. Big conversion. Keeps the drive alive. And there's really only one defender left if Hollywood catches that ball. Who knows how far that play ends up going. But unfortunately, it's incomplete. Ravens punt.
Couple things about this play as you're looking at it. So we have a couple things happening. At the line of scrimmage, the center and the left tackle both pull to the right. So what that tells me on a passing down like this is it's either going to be a run play, and probably a pretty quick developing run play, either run by Jackson behind the back, or it's going to be a quick pass to a hot read. Now, the hottest of hot reads is going to be the most off coverage, which was Jackson on Brown in the far right. And as you see Jackson throw this pass back to the middle of the field to Andrews, it's not a tremendous difference in the degrees of vision. So sometimes receivers on the other side of the field, you can't expect him to see the open receiver on the opposite side of the field.
Right.
But this was not a if he's taking in the field like an easy eye puzzle, he should have been able probably to see that Brown had space on this play. And I think you're right that every other defender has his back to Brown on this play. So it becomes a foot race pretty quickly between Brown and Jackson to see just how many yards he's going to gain on the play.
Right. And the other thing that's worth noting is there's ample time and space on this play. Lamar is not really under a tremendous amount of pressure. He's not forced into making a quick decision based on someone breaking free and getting into his face. So it's probably reasonable to expect that he could have seen Hollywood and made that throw.
I would say just in terms of ample time and space, it probably is not an ATS throw by me. It's not a pressure either, but it would have been a BOQ, a ball out quick, as I would have scored that play.
Sure.
Definitely under 3 seconds, but, he had time. He had time to get rid of the ball. And I think, one question would have been that it looked like Landry, number 58, coming off the left edge, who ends up being blocked by the back on this play. It looked like he did not get out of that as quickly as he could have in order to, and he probably also was not in a position to get his hands up and bat a ball down if it was headed out to Brown. Also, real nice bite from both inside linebackers on the play action on the play. It went through kind of a faux mesh. I don't think Jackson ever intended to hand that ball off. He might have run it himself, but it was either going to be a throw or a run himself.
Right.
So, see, your point you're making on this, and I'm hearing you loud and clear, is that this is a play that Jackson needs to read that defense better and needs to make that play better, as opposed to the Ravens' personnel and scheme somehow let them down.
Sure. I think you can look at this play and say there are receivers open, and having a Julio Jones isn't going to make a difference in this case. He just needs to throw to the guy that's open.
Well, Julio Jones would have been one of the tightly pressed receivers, I'm sure, in this formation too. All right, let's move on to the next play. That's a great one. We'll move to Q1 430, and we'll talk through this and allow people to kind of play along with it at the same time. And on this one, it's 1st and 10. This is the interception. So long pass down the right sideline, if you don't remember it. Miles Boykin continues to run the route, and this is one of these plays, I think, that potentially Boykin lost a little trust from Lamar, but take us through the play from your perspective.
Yeah, so there are several things going on this play that, to me, again, I don't know that this is a scheme thing or this is not having a number one receiver thing. To your point, I don't know that Boykin has done much to earn Lamar's trust this season, but on this throw, this ball is clearly underthrown dramatically by Lamar. When Boykin makes his cut, he's open, and Lamar really just needs to put that ball out to the sidelines. And the broadcast does a good job of expressing this. However, the other thing that I want to point out that I find interesting, especially when you see the replay, and you're of the camera view behind Lamar, on the left side of the formation, it's again Hollywood, and both he and Boykin on opposite sides of the formation are in near splits. So they're pretty close to the tight ends on each side. So Boykin runs straight up the field and then breaks out, to the flag, what we call a traditional flag route. Hollywood runs up the field, and you'll see that he actually cuts outside, and he is again being shadowed by Jackson. And when Hollywood cuts outside, Jackson flips his hips and his head and goes towards the outer sideline. And as soon as Hollywood jabs, he cuts back to the middle of the field. And if you see behind Lamar view, Boykin's broken out. Lamar still has the ball. Hollywood has Jackson flipped around. And it looks to me that if Lamar just merely lays the ball down the center of the field and gives Hollywood time to run under it, this is a touchdown. So on this play, Lamar could have made a better pass to Boykin, or he could have thrown it to Hollywood, who to me looks equally, if not more wide open than Boykin would be. And so this is just another example of a play that goes, the end result is terrible for the Ravens, an interception, where if Lamar just makes a little better throw or a little better read, perhaps this is a big play in their favor. And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do, again, with the scheme being faulty or the receivers being deficient.
So a couple more things about this play. They rush 4 and drop 2 in the end on this. So 5 at the line of scrimmage, actually 4 at the line of scrimmage. And then they end up rushing an extra linebacker, and Landry drops out. It is ample time and space on the play. So there's plenty of time for Lamar to do what you said. Read the break of Brown against whoever that, I guess the cornerback is Jackson there too. Did you say that already? Okay.
Yeah.
And that certainly could have been maybe a deep throw down the right seam. Now, the guy I'm a little bit afraid of here is that Malcolm Butler is going to come off Boykin and help on that route, given the depth there. But I think you're probably right. I think if he lays it out there far enough for either receiver, it could have been a completion.
Right. And the other thing you'll note that if you're just focused on the Boykin route, Lamar hits his back step at the top of his drop and bounces 2 or 3 times after Boykin has made the break. I mean, if he just puts it out to the sidelines as soon as he hits the top of his drop, that ball is out a lot more quickly. It gives Boykin ample time to run under it on the sidelines. Again, he needs to make a better throw. But this is an example of, it doesn't look like Lamar is making the throw in the timing of what the route calls for. If, again, I'm an amateur watching this, maybe I'm incorrect, but if he either throws it earlier to Boykin or lays it out to Hollywood, to me, this play has a lot of potential.
Okay, that's another good one. So we're not saying again that it's the scheme. It's not. There was some overlapping routistry in the middle early on in this play. It's essentially starts off with looking like it might be 3 verticals with Andrews taking 1, and then he stops. But then you have 2 verticals which diverge more or less, or at least they don't get closer together once Boykin breaks to the outside. Lots of opportunity again here, and I think you're right that really in this case it's more Lamar not making the right read on this play, and more than not making the right read, because he threw it probably to the right guy, was not getting the timing on the throw right.
Right.
All right. And do you put any of the blame on Boykin for not tracking the ball earlier and getting back to prevent that interception?
It's really hard to say. One of the things that I noticed on this play that they don't really point out in the broadcast, it looks to me that if you look at the shadows of the defenders on this play, it looks to me that Boykin is looking right back into the sun. It looks from the behind Lamar view, it looks like it's likely the case that the sun is behind him to the left. So it could be that Boykin turns and this ball is right in the sun and he really has trouble tracking it. Now, the one thing I will fault I would fault Boykin for. Again, I'm not a coach. I don't know how these guys are coached. So, I want to be careful about faulting Boykin here. But if you just watch him on the route, he makes his cut and doesn't turn his head for 3 steps. That to me, I don't know why, because when he makes the cut, that's when he's most open. So I don't know why he doesn't immediately turn his head. Now, Lamar doesn't throw it, and maybe Lamar doesn't throw it because he doesn't have that trust with Boykin. So he's waiting to make sure Boykin is going to look. So maybe that disrupts the timing. And if that's the case, again, maybe we do fault Boykin here, and you could make the argument if they have a better receiver in that spot, maybe this play is more successful. But, these are all aspects that we don't frankly know.
Well, those are both great points. The first one about the sun, just an amazing point. I rarely have heard that ever made. That, hey, look at the shadows to try and figure out where the sun is coming from in terms of it being his eyes. That's a great point. And your other point about Boykin needing to show his openness by turning his head is an important one. And as a receiver, once he makes that break, he's already given himself away to that defensive back. He's not hiding anything from him anymore. Go ahead and track that football as soon as you can. Maybe the ball's already in the air, maybe it isn't, but go ahead and start tracking the football.
Yeah.
All right, outstanding play. Let's go. We'll do one more of these. These are great, Brad. I really appreciate you coming on and doing these. We'll go to Q2 1045. Give you a few seconds to go there. While we're doing that, Brad, where can people find you on Twitter?
Well, I am at MC Bradley. Frankly, I've been very inactive on Twitter, other than to look and see what you've tweeted recently, Ken. But my wife and I just welcomed our second child home, and she's 2 months old now, so I haven't really had much time for the socials. Thank you.
By the way, I haven't been active on Twitter much either, and we have a new puppy taking up our time right now. We're just
there you go.
Fallen in love. I will not try and call it similar because the amount of work is very large in both cases, but it's an order of magnitude larger for an actual child.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to the 3rd and 6 play at the Tennessee 10. So the Ravens have a chance. Current score at this point in the game, let's see, Q2.
It's 10-0.
10-0. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the drive. They have the ball immediately after the Titans kick the field goal to go up 10. And they drive it into the red zone. This is a 3rd and about 6 or 7. And this play, you can actually simply watch the broadcast and watch the broadcast replay. And Rich Gannon, I believe, was a commentator on here and points out exactly what I'm going to point out here. But at the beginning of this play, it's an empty back set, and there are 3 receivers to Lamar's right. Andrews is in the near slot. Snead has a close split to the outside of Andrews, and then Hollywood is out wide. And at the snap of this play, Andrews runs a slant, and Andrews runs a slant while Snead sort of releases up the field but inside. And after 3 steps or so, Andrews plants and cuts immediately straight out to the sidelines. And at that point, his defender, Byard, gets rubbed by Snead, and Andrews is wide open. And on this play, Lamar has time, but he double clutches and then holds the ball and gets sacked. And they point this out on the replay on the broadcast that all he has to do is throw it in time to Andrews, and this is likely a touchdown. But he double clutches, gets sacked, and the Ravens have to kick a field goal. And now the score is 10-3 instead of 10-7.
So on the play from an offensive line perspective, this is the first of the 3 plays where they're actually blocking a standard 5-on-5 pass block set. And as they drop back, Powers gets beaten inside by, that is 98, right? That's their best defensive player. It's not Gerald Casey. It's
the name is escaping me.
Yeah. You got to get that right. Okay. Anyway, we'll come back to that. But he gets beaten inside on the play, and he would have gotten a share of the sack and probably the most significant share for allowing the initial compromising of the cone. But Phillips also gets pushed back And you
Yeah.
probably got at least half of this on how I graded. I don't remember exactly how I did it, but it's definitely a quick pressure. But Brad's absolutely right. There's a wide open Mark Andrews on the play there. And what do you think actually happened in terms of why it did not work out?
I frankly can't tell. I was wondering if Lamar was concerned about Powers' man being near his feet, but he's not that close. I mean, Phillips gets blasted back by Brooks Reed, but again, like Lamar has time to throw it right there. I mean, it's open and he just hitches it. Now, one of the things I've wondered about Lamar is whether he either trust the read, like trust his eyes to make the read, or B, trust the receivers to be where they need to be when he makes his read. And, if he hesitates on either of those things, the timing is off and a play like this happens. In this instance, he's throwing to Andrews, who would be the receiver most likely to be trusted by Lamar to be where he needs to be. So I frankly, I'm not sure. I'm not smart enough to know what Lamar is thinking. All I know is this play is there. This play is open. This play should be a touchdown, but he hesitates.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of color on the play. Obviously, Phillips is getting beat pretty badly. Powers is getting beat inside. That does infringe upon the cone, but it's not as bad. But also from the backside, you see a nice attempt at a 12-6 block by Brown, but it's not his best effort. Landry really gets around the quarter, and he's almost to Lamar's hand as he throws. I'm not sure Lamar can feel it or see it, but it's that kind of a play. But right as his arm is cocked, as he's ready to throw the ball, you see this rub happening. It's a three-way collision here on the rub route. It took all three of those players, two of theirs and one of ours, out of the player. And it seems like this ball should have been released on time.
Yeah. And, that concept that we just mentioned, the rub, this is something that you might hear folks in the offseason saying that our passing game needs a facelift will call for these very kinds of plays, whether it's, bunch formations with easier releases or rub route concepts that Pittsburgh and New England run with much success. And here we're doing the same thing, but, the blocking holds. It's not perfect. The blocking holds. He has a window to make the throw, and he doesn't pull the trigger. Now, we can nitpick on the line, but in this case, you hope that your MVP quarterback makes that throw.
You think there's any way he's distracted on this play by an opportunity to run himself, or is he already covering up at this point and thinking, we got to get the field goal? Because there's nowhere for him to run. There really isn't anywhere.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible, but even if that is the case, I think the point I am trying to make here remains that it's not the fault of the concept or the fault of the receivers that this play is not successful. Lamar doesn't. If he's thinking run, it looks to me that's the wrong decision because the throw is there. So it's just a decision making or an execution thing that you would think with work in the off season, with proper self scouting. Lamar's a hard worker. The work he's going to put in, again, shoring up the offensive line, like those kinds of things are probably going to pay off in spades if they're able to really really hone in on those things, as opposed to saying, hey, we need to throw out the playbook and design some new plays, or we need to go all in for, a big time wide receiver in the offseason. No, this play is here. You just need a little bit more precision. And this is a touchdown.
All right. Outstanding stuff, Brad. We really appreciate having you on to show us this. You mentioned now we've picked out, and admitted they're hand-picked plays, 3 plays
Correct.
where it wasn't the scheme. It wasn't not having a number one receiver. It was just a matter of the play didn't get executed by the players as drawn up, and that sometimes is the problem. And you will hear anecdotal evidence given to support just about anything, including all of the far-flung theories about how the Ravens' incredibly cheap, incredibly efficient offense the last couple of years it has got to be changed completely if they're ever going to win another playoff game.
Right. And admittedly, this is an incredibly small sample size. And to your point, these plays are handpicked. But as I was watching this game specifically, and it seemed to be going down the path of playoff games prior, where they got in this 10-0 hole, each of these plays occurred at a very significant point in time. First play was their first third down conversion opportunity after stopping the Titans 3-and-out. They convert that, maybe go on a long drive, get a score, and they go up to start the game. That's huge for them. Instead, failed conversion, punt, the Titans go down and score their only touchdown. Second play, they're down 7-0, interception, big play. Third play, they're down 10-0, they get into the red zone, third down conversion, don't convert, field goal. All of those are real emotional killers. So, it's not systemic to the system as a whole, but it is just an example to say, look, in these critical moments, at times, they just don't execute. Again, it's not the scheme, it's not the personnel.
And of course, the very next third down was the 3rd and 9 at the Tennessee 48, where Lamar ran it in for the touchdown that tied the game. The Ravens never looked back. So I think you got to take the good with the bad here with the Ravens. But where would you like them to prioritize those resources? And unfortunately, we don't have time to go into that on the show. But give us your high-level GM armchair view of where you'd like the Ravens to go this offseason.
Oof, I think that's going to be a longer discussion, Ken. But, ultimately, I think that the one thing that I love about the Ravens and about the brass there is they have a plan, but they're also willing to adapt. So, while we may want them, whether we say they need, an offensive tackle in the first round, or maybe a playmaking safety, or maybe a number one wide receiver, they're gonna try to go for best value and then adapt their strategy after that. And to me, I really like that. I don't want them to pick. Yeah. Yeah. So
we say that every offseason, but isn't it nice to go into a draft? I mean, first of all, you don't want to have 5 holes to have to fill, but you also don't want to have one where that's the only thing you're concerned about. And every other team knows it. And whether you're trading up or down, you don't get value. You get screwed either way you want to trade. It's better to be in the Ravens' position where they're happy to trade down. They'll trade up if they think they really got a player they love too, but they're going to always be in the position of power relative to trades. Let the draft board come to them rather than go after it specifically. And they have so many, we talk about number one wide receiver. We talk about offensive tackle. We talk about pass rusher. We haven't talked about tight end yet. That's a need for the team right now. And the big other one we haven't talked about is defensive line, where the Ravens are just ancient on that defensive line. Well, guess what? You want to unload a run stuffer that you don't think has value? Go get another one who's on his rookie deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, Brad, loved having you on. You're welcome anytime, buddy. And this goes out for anybody who's got shorts that can deliver quality like this. I love to hear from you. Bring me 3 bullet points. Just tell me what you want to talk about. That's all Brad did. And he said, I want to talk about these 3 plays. And that's great. We really appreciate this kind of content, Brad. Tell folks again where you are on Twitter.
So I'm on Twitter at MC Bradley. And I'm mostly, if I'm tweeting about the Ravens or the Caps.
The Caps, too. Big Caps fan, huh? Happy about their start?
I mean, they're leading their division. So yes, I profess to know less about hockey. So I just try to watch it and enjoy it and not pretend like I understand how, whether I should be happy or not. All
right. Well,
Ovechkin score and I'm good.
Yeah, it's me too in a sense, but I'm happy they've been able to maintain what has been, frankly, a very low scoring, not a big margin in terms of goals with that great record, while having all those guys out with COVID, having their number one goaltender out, Ovechkin and
a new system.
A lot of his posse.
Speaking of a new system, they're learning a new system with no off season. So, yeah.
All right. Well, very cool. Well, hopefully we'll be going to football again in the fall. Brad, thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.
Thanks, Ken.